Yo, what's up guys? Alpha, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to hit rank 5 with on the arena ladder. Now I just quickly want to say sorry for the slight delay in getting a video out. Basically since the last video I've been playing a lot of Alchemy because I feel like the format is really unexplored since rotation. I've been trying a bunch of different ideas out and this list has definitely felt like the best of the bunch so far. I've also been grinding the ladder a bunch as well because I really wanted to try and get back to rank 1 to try and get my third rank 1 finish in a row if I could, because the season's ending tomorrow so it's getting pretty close, and I've been grinding an absolute ton with this deck. As you can see from the record, I'm currently 102 and 18 with this list, so been performing incredibly consistently and very, very well so far, but I just haven't been able to get past rank 5. I think I've played over 60 matches at rank 5 and just not moved, so unfortunately I'm going to be giving up on rank 1 finish for this season, but definitely going to be going again next season, and big props to everyone in the top 4 right now, absolutely killing it. But either way, this deck has been performing incredibly well. There's also going to be a link down in the description for the deck list if you want to try it out for yourself, and I'm also going to be doing a full article on this list as well, which will have, you know, more details, a full sideboard guide, and how I changed the deck for best of one. So that's going to be going up on the MTGAzone Premium site, and I'll link it down in the description once that's up as well. But anyway, with that all out of the way, this is my green-black Confectioner Took combo deck in Alchemy, and as the name suggests, this is a combo deck, and it's really cool because we have a 2-card combo. Typically combo decks in Alchemy are always 3-card combos, so having a 2-card combo is really nice here. And the way this works is the combo is basically Peregrine Took plus Experimental Confectioner, and if you can assemble these 2 creatures together alongside 3 food tokens, you can activate the Peregrine Took, sacrifice the 3 food tokens to draw a card. That then gives you 3 triggers for Confectioner, which puts 3 1/1 tokens into play, which then also puts 3 food tokens into play because of the Peregrine Took's passive ability as well. So you're essentially back to square one. You have the 3 foods again, but you've put 3 1/1 tokens into play and you've drawn a card. So you can basically just loop this over and over again to draw as many cards out of your deck as you want and put a bunch of 1/1 tokens into play. Now, the one weakness of this combo is that it doesn't win the turn you combo off, right? You have to wait a turn to attack. So it's kind of similar to the Scurry Oak combo in Historic because of that. But I've really not found that to be too much of an issue. You know, the only 3 situations where having to wait a turn could potentially be an issue is, first of all, if you're facing down a lethal attack from the opponent, because the 1/1 tokens that you create on the Confectioner can't block. So it's still possible the opponent could attack you and kill you even after you combo off. The second potential issue is if the opponent's also running a combo deck and they're threatening to combo off themselves. And then the third potential issue is against sweepers. So first of all, if you're facing down a lethal attack, that's not an issue at all with this deck because of pylons. So we're running 4 pylon in the deck, which is a removal spell that we can cast with Convoke, and it's a black spell as well, which is very important. So once we start making essentially infinite tokens off the Confectioner, we're going to draw pylon, and then we can just cast the pylon for free by tapping down the tokens that we create off the combo. So even if the opponent does have a lethal attack, it's really not much of an issue because we can just keep drawing through our deck with Peregrine, and then we can just kill 3 or 4 of the opponent's biggest creatures, which is basically almost always going to be good enough to cut them off a lethal attack, which then enables us to just attack for the win the following turn. The second issue, as I mentioned, is against potential combo decks. The only combo decks that I'm aware of in Alchemy right now are all creature-based combos, so like the mirror match against other Took Confectioner combo decks, for example, or there's the Ratadrabik combo as well. Basically, all of the combo decks that I'm aware of in Alchemy right now are creature-based. So same thing with the lethal attackers issue. We can just draw through our whole deck, find the pylons, and then just use them to kill the opponent's creature to cut them off the combo. And then in terms of sweepers, again, I don't really feel like that's too much of an issue either, because we essentially get to draw as many cards as we want off the Peregrine Took. So we can just basically sculpt the perfect 7-card hand to follow up with. So we can just draw through our entire deck until we find another Peregrine Took and Confectioner. And then if the opponent does have a sweeper, we can just combo off again the following turn, and that's only game 1. Post sideboard, typically against decks that do have sweepers against us, I'll be boarding in Duress as well. So if we combo off with at least 1 black mana spare, we can just draw through our entire deck until we find the Duress, and then use the Duress to just discard the sweeper from the opponent's hand. So I've really not found it to be an issue having to wait to combo off. Now, there is potentially a way that you can win the same turn. I want to give a quick shout out to Minimoy, who was the player who finished rank 2 last season, and they come up with the cool idea of running Hoarding Broodlord in the deck as a way to potentially win the same turn that you're comboing off. So the way this would work is you combo off, find your Hoarding Broodlord, and then convoke this into play for free off all the 1/1 tokens, and then you can use the Broodlord to play a finisher from your deck, like Mirkwood Bats, for example. But the big issue with this is that Hoarding Broodlord could only cast cards from your library, so if you happen to draw your finisher like Mirkwood Bats before you draw your Hoarding Broodlord, it doesn't work, and the only way to get around that is to then either run more Mirkwood Bats or more Hoarding Broodlords, and even if you do that, there's no guarantee that you'll draw your Broodlord before your finishes. And the big weakness of doing this is you're essentially putting dead cards in the deck, right? Broodlord and Mirkwood Bats are both pretty bad cards in this deck, unless you're comboing off. So I don't really feel like it's worth it unless the format somehow devolves into loads of decks running a ton of sweepers. And if that happens, you could probably just main deck some Duresses anyway. So I've really not found having to wait a turn to combo off to be too much of an issue at all. In terms of getting the food tokens in play in order to combo off, like I said, you need the 3 food tokens in play to do so. The Confectioner puts 1 food token in play, which is, gets you a third of the way. If you have Peregrine Took in play before the Confectioner, then Confectioner puts 2 food tokens into play, which is really big. So all you need outside of that is to put 1 more food token in play from somewhere and you can combo off. The other cards in the deck that produce food tokens, first of all, we've got Many Partings here, which is a 1-mana sorcery that searches for a basic land and produces a food token. Now, this is really big in the deck for a number of reasons. First of all, it just gives us that 1 food token. So if we go Partings on turn 1 and then Peregrine Took on turn 3, we can potentially just go Confectioner on turn 4 and combo off that way. The other reason why Many Partings is really big is because, first of all, we're running a lot of 4-drops in the deck. Pylon doesn't really count because it's a Convoke spell, but we're running 4 Beseech, 4 One Ring, and 1 Shielded, which is 9 4-drops. So we need a pretty high land count. And if we look at the lands, we've got 23 lands plus 4 Many Partings, so essentially 27 lands, because I basically see Many Partings as a tapped land, slightly better than a tapped land, because if you have a mana spare, then you can just use this to search a land, but for the most part, I see Many Partings as a tapped land that puts a food token into play. So Many Partings helps us hit a high enough land density where we're not going to miss our 4th land drop, because the One Ring and Beseech the Mirror are huge parts of this deck, so you really, really want to hit your 4th land consistently. So I think 27 lands is a good amount because of that, and Many Partings enables it. Beseech the Mirror I'm going to talk about in a minute as well, but this does require triple black, and the mana base in Historic is pretty rough right now. Especially in Golgari, we only have Reckless Cottage and Llanowar Waste as dual lands, so Many Partings is really nice as a way for us to consistently hit this triple black on turn 4 for Beseech as well. So Many Partings really solid at helping us hit enough lands to consistently find our 4th land, hit enough black sources for Beseech the Mirror, and also puts a food token in play for the Confectioner. And then we've also got Tough Cookie, which is a really important card in this deck as well, because it's a food itself and also produces a food when it enters play. So it puts 2 food tokens in play, which is really big, because then if we go Tough Cookie into Tough Cookie into Confectioner, and then we draw a Peregrine Took, we already have the 3 food tokens in play because Tough Cookie is a food itself and it creates a food token as well. It's also a cheap creature to enable Pylon, which is very important. Initial builds of this deck, I tried running Assemble the Team instead of Tough Cookie, and I just felt like Pylon, when we weren't comboing off, didn't come online early enough, and Tough Cookie being a cheap creature is really nice with Pylon as well. And then it's also really nice with Beseech the Mirror because it acts as a bargain enabler that still leaves a food token in play. So that can lead to curve outs as well, where we go Tough Cookie on turn 2, Peregrine Took on turn 3, and then we can use Beseech, sacrificing the Tough Cookie to find Confectioner, and then Confectioner puts 2 food tokens in play because of the Peregrine Took, and then we still have 3 food tokens to be able to combo off as well. So Tough Cookie, really nice as a food enabler, really nice as an enabler for Pylon and Beseech the Mirror, and then it also works really nicely as kind of another win condition as well, because of the activated ability to turn our non-creature artifacts into 4/4 tokens, which is really, really good as a way to close the game out once we have a lot of mana. We can also use it on defense to potentially block bigger creatures like Shielded as well, which is really nice. And having kind of backup win conditions is very important in this deck because the combo itself is very vulnerable to the End. I think the End is quite a common removal spell in the format right now from my experience, and the opponent using the End on either Peregrine Took or Confectioner cuts us off the combo. So having Tough Cookie as another way to be able to close games out once we have a lot of food is really nice. We can also use Tough Cookie to animate the One Ring to get a 4/4 indestructible attacker as well. So Tough Cookie, very much the glue that holds this deck together. It really does a lot, and is also a really nice enabler for the combo as well. Then outside of that, we're also obviously we're playing Alchemy. We're almost always going to be playing the One Ring, and this is one of the best One Ring decks in the format as well because we have so many ways to gain life because of all the food tokens, and we also have 4 Beseech the Mirror, which basically increases our redundancy for finding the One Ring as well. So I think the format is kind of devolving around the One Ring right now. So we definitely want to run our own because, you know, the player who gets their One Ring online earlier is generally going to get a huge advantage here. And the other nice thing about the One Ring is, again, the combo is vulnerable to the end, but we can just win off card advantage from the One Ring and, you know, other attackers like Shieldred and Tough Cookie and Bowmasters. So One Ring just helps us get ahead on card advantage, and is also very nice with the combo as well, because once we start drawing a bunch of cards off the One Ring, we're going to get to 6 mana fairly easily because we're going to keep drawing lands, and then once we get to 6 mana, we can just combo off out of nowhere by casting Peregrine Took into Confectioner. So it's very risky for the opponent to ever tap out against us once we start drawing off the One Ring. And then, as I mentioned, we got Beseech the Mirror here, which most of the time is going to be fetching the One Ring. You know, it's kind of copies 5 through 8 of the One Ring, but also very importantly, it can help us tutor the combo pieces as well. So as I mentioned, you know, we can go curve outs where we go Tough Cookie into Peregrine Took, and then just Beseech the Mirror, sacrifice the Tough Cookie to find Confectioner, and just combo off out of nowhere. And then we can also use it to find Pylon if we need to kill an opposing Shieldred, for example. We can use it to find Bowmasters if we need to kill an opposing Bowmasters, and we can also use it to find Haywire Might if we need to kill an opposing One Ring. Speaking of which, Haywire Might is very much here because the format is so centered around the One Ring right now, and having 4 main deck ways to kill opposing One Rings is really huge. But that's not the only reason it's here. It also does a lot of other things as well. It's a very cheap creature for Pylon, which is really nice, you know, helps convoke this out fairly in the early game, which is very important, particularly against opposing Shieldreds. And then it's also a bargain enabler for Beseech, gains us 3 life to offset the life loss from the One Ring. So even though it's mainly here as a way to kill opposing rings, it does have a decent amount of other applications in the deck as well. And then we've also got Orcish Bowmasters, which, again, one of the best cards in the format. And again, I think this is one of the best decks to utilize the Bowmasters as well, because we can use Beseech the Mirror to sacrifice the token that we get off this to tutor up whatever we need. And, you know, we're running Pylon as well, which is another really nice card, because if you're planning to cast the Pylon, Bowmasters is essentially free because it puts 2 bodies into play. And it's obviously just generically good, very good against opposing One Rings. Now, I will say in this particular deck, you want to play Bowmasters very, very cautiously. You basically never ever want to run this out on turn 2. You really want to be holding it to kill opposing Bowmasters, because the one weakness of the combo and the One Ring in this deck is that obviously the combo draws cards to do its thing, so it is very weak to opposing Orcish Bowmasters and Shieldreds. Same thing with the Ring, right? The Ring is obviously very weak to opposing Bowmasters and Shieldreds as well, so typically with Bowmasters, you basically just want to hold this to kill opposing Bowmasters. Oftentimes, they won't even flash this in if the opponent casts the One Ring or is activating the One Ring, if I've got my own, because if you do that, you know, the opponent plays the One Ring and activates it when you have yours in play, you flash it in, you know, you get a trigger or 2 off the opponent's One Ring, then you untap and you activate your One Ring. The opponent is very likely to have found their own Bowmasters when they're drawing off the One Ring. And if they flash in their Bowmasters to kill yours in response, you're in real trouble then, because not only is it, you know, pinging you a bunch off your One Ring, but it also shuts you off from the combo as well. So you want to play very, very safely, very, very cautiously with the Bowmasters if you're up against another Bowmasters deck, which does account for most of the decks in the format right now. So basically, play this carefully. Ideally, you want to save this to kill opposing Bowmasters. And then on top of that, we've also got a single copy of Shieldred here, which is basically a Beseech target to fetch once we already have our One Ring in play. Now, obviously, the big weakness of Shieldred is it's very vulnerable to interaction. So if you feel like the opponent has a single target removal spell that they're holding up, not the best idea to go for this, but oftentimes you'll end up in situations where the opponent's tapped out and you have a Ring in play, and Beseeching for Shieldred is really solid there. And it's also just nice to have as another win condition. You know, as I mentioned, the deck, or the combo specifically, is very weak to the end, so having other ways to close out the game is really good. And I've tried to build this deck in a way where even if the opponent does use the end on one of our combo pieces, we still have a very easy way of winning, because we have the One Ring, because we have Shieldred as a backup, because we have Tough Cookie as another way to close the game out as well. So Shieldred as a one-off has felt really nice. You know, again, since we're running Beseech and One Ring, you might think we want more Shieldreds, but you really can't afford to run more than 9 4-drops. You know, the curve of this deck is already pretty high, so Shieldred is a one-off, choose a target off Beseech has felt really nice. And in terms of the mana base, you know, as I mentioned, the mana bases have become a lot worse in Alchemy post-rotation with the loss of the triomes and the slow lands. So definitely need to run both the dual lands. Llanowar Waste obviously does us a damage, but, you know, as I said, we have very few dual lands in Golgari colours, so we have to run the Llanowar Waste. And then Restless Cottage, again, I'm not really a huge fan of this card because in this specific deck, because it's essentially having to run 8 tap lands alongside the many partings. But again, in order to run Beseech and run, you know, green 1-drops, we really have to run as many dual lands as possible. And then we've got, you know, 5 forest, 9 swamp. we basically need these 5 forests here in order to consistently have green on turn 1 for the many partings. And then we've got a single copy of Mirex, which I quite like here because it is a card that can fix our mana the turn it comes down, and the first copy of this is also very valuable. Again, gives us another way, another win condition, pairs very nicely with Peregrine Took, because each time we activate it, it also puts a food token into play. So I really like the first copy of this, but I don't think you can really run any more than one, because draws with multiple Myrics are very awkward. But just having this first one here can enable us to get green on turn 1 if we really need for many partings, and then also very nice at helping us hit that third black on turn 4 if we need it for Beseech the Mirror as well. So mana base just about works, and it's felt pretty decent so far. So that's the main deck. As I said, getting a 2-card combo in Alchemy is a really big deal, and this deck is very, very consistent at setting it up. Because we have Beseech that can tutor for it, it also makes it very risky for the opponent tapping out. One of the main reasons I really like this combo in current Alchemy is because the One Ring is very popular. So if we do go, for example, turn 1 Hey Why Might, turn 1 Many Partings, turn 2 Tough Cookie, turn 3 Peregrine Took. If the opponent follows that by tapping out for the One Ring, which is typically a very safe play to do on turn 4, we can just cast Confectioner, combo off, and then unless they happen to have a sweeper in hand, they basically just lost the game there straight away, because it really punishes the opponent for tapping out. Now, I will say, as the combo is weak to Shielded and Bowmasters, you do need to be very cognizant of that. As I mentioned, you really want to save your Bowmasters to kill opposing Bowmasters, and you really want to save your Pylons to deal with Shieldreds and Bowmasters as well. So play very, very cautiously with your interaction against opposing black decks. You really want to be saving these for Bowmasters and Shieldreds, but the other nice thing about the combo is you don't have to draw cards in order to get value off this, because if you have Peregrine Took alongside Confectioner, you can activate food tokens to gain life, and you'll get the food token back as well. So say you have these two together and you crack a food to gain 3 life, that produces a 1/1 token with Confectioner, which also produces a food token with Peregrine Took. So you essentially have infinite food tokens when you have this as well. So if the opponent does stick a Shielded and you don't have an answer, you can just use all of your mana to keep gaining life, putting 1/1s into play, and then you just have infinite food tokens as well to gain you infinite life, and then eventually you'll find the pylon. If you are in a spot where you feel like you have to combo off, you can just keep drawing to try and find the pylon to kill the Bowmasters or Shielded that's in play as well. So even if you don't have an immediate answer, you definitely do have outs, because you can draw into pylon as well, if that makes sense. Anyway, moving on to the sideboard now. First of all, we've got 4 copies of Misery Shadow here, which is pretty much exclusively here for the Ratadrabik combo. And Misery Shadow basically shuts them off doing that at all, because it exiles the Boromir, so it doesn't get a trigger off Ratadrabik, which is pretty huge. 4 copies might seem like a lot, but this is honestly a deck where you're not sideboarding very heavily in any matchup, really. So you do have space in the sideboard to go a bit more narrow. This is definitely the flex slot, though. If you feel like you wanted to run something else, you could trim on Misery Shadow, but my experience of the Ratadrabik matchup is you want to draw the first copy of Misery Shadow as consistently as possible, and you also want to find the second one. Having a backup is very important, because typically they don't have that much removal. So if you can get the first one in play, that typically stops them from comboing off, but they do sometimes run 1 piece of removal, so finding a second copy as a backup is really, really big against them. If you can get 2 in play, that basically guarantees that it's going to shut them from comboing off, which is really nice. And then obviously you can tutor it up off Beseech the Mirror if you want as well, but Misery Shadow, just a generically good card that is very good at shutting off the Ratadrabik combo, which can potentially race you. That is a scary combo deck, so I think it's good to be prepared. We've got a single copy of Terror Sunder, which I like bringing in over the 4th copy of Tough Cookie against other One Ring decks. This is really nice because it basically just gives you a 5th way to kill the One Ring in addition to Hey Why Might. It's also better to tutor off Beseech the Mirror, because we don't need to have a spare green mana like we do with Hey Why Might. We can just, activate Beseech, tutor up Terror Sunder, and exile the opponent's ring as well. So having a 5th way to answer the ring in mirror match or against other One Ring decks is very important. Then we've got a single copy of Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which is basically a tutor target off Beseech against graveyard decks. Now, I've faced very, very few graveyard decks post-rotation, but I feel like it's, very little opportunity cost running this as a one-off, and it is a generically good card as well. I have come across some decks that are running Not Dead After All as a way to protect their creatures like Bowmasters, and Agatha's Soul Cauldron is really nice there as a way to exile the creature before it comes back to the battlefield. So really nice as a one-off against graveyard strategies. Then I've got a single copy of The End, which is basically a tutor target off Beseech for opposing creature combo decks like in the mirror match. This is really good to be able to tutor up and get rid of the opponent's combo. Then we've got a couple bits of extra removal. We've got 2 cut down, 2 go for the throat. Go for the throat is the card I typically board in the most. If I'm up against the Jund deck with Crucius and Jarsel, this is really nice at just killing their creatures before it gets value. And then cut down is really nice to have access to. Can be good in the mirror match because both Confectioner and Peregrine Took died to cut down, but if you face any aggro decks, which I've faced very few of, unsurprisingly, but, you know, some people might bring mono white or mono red, and cut down is very good in those matchups as well. And then we've got 4 copies of Duress for control decks. Specifically very important because of board sweepers, like I mentioned. You know, board sweepers is a way that the opponent can beat the combo once you go off. So having access to Duress, not only to get rid of counter spells to help, you know, clear the way for us to resolve our one rings and stuff, but also just very, very nice at enabling us to combo off, find a discard spell, and then get rid of the opponent's sweeper. So that's the deck overall. Like I said, it's been performing incredibly consistently for me. The deck's also been really, really fun, and I've been really enjoying navigating these One Ring Mirror matches, and having a combo is a really, really good way for ever punishing the opponent for tapping out. So next up, I've got some gameplay so you guys can see the deck in action. Just got 5 matches that I was playing on the ladder. If you've got any questions or comments about the deck at all, definitely let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Big up. Okay, so we're going second here. And I think we can keep this one. The mana base issue is slightly annoying because we got Llanowar Waste and a Mirex, but I think it's fine for the most part. Okay, sweet. So we drew a basic forest, so as long as we can draw another black source, we still potentially have enough mana to go for Beseech on turn 4, but we have the combo here, right? We've got Tough Cookie on turn 2, Peregrine on turn 3, and then if the opponent, you know, doesn't have a piece of removal or they play creatures or the One Ring instead, we can potentially just combo off on turn 4 here, which is pretty nice. Okay, so they use Virtue to kill the Tough Cookie, and they attack and buff the Misery Shadow, sure. So that's not too bad. We do find that Beseech, which is a little bit annoying having to use the Mirex this turn, because it means that even if we draw Black Source now, we can't Beseech next turn, which is a bit annoying, but I think there's a reasonable chance the opponent might tap out for the ring here. Okay, they got Dreams of Steel and Oil, so they can take the Confectioner to cut us off the combo here, which is a bit annoying. So a little bit of an awkward spot drawing that Beseech, you know. I really wanted to save the Mirex for turn 4 because of that, but I still think we're in an okay spot here. You know, we can still potentially cast Beseech if we draw 2 black sources, which we do have a lot in the deck. Okay, there's 1, so all we need now is 1 more black source and we're good. Now, I think I'm happy to attack here. You know, the opponent could obviously trade Bowmasters with the Peregrine, but I'm reasonably happy with that. You know, especially with the Beseech in hand, I would quite like to get rid of an opponent's Bowmasters if they do have it. Okay, so opponent attacks, and they buff the Shadow. So I'm going to see how much they buff it. If they put a ton of mana into this, we can obviously use Pile on it. But if they only activate it a couple of times, then I'm not that bothered about killing it here, really. And even if they don't cast anything else, if they do hold open removal, we can just use our mana with Mirex here as well. So, and I typically with this deck, I play very, very conservatively with Bowmasters. Okay, since they've activated it 3 times, I think it's worth going for Pylon now. That can then help us dig for the black source, which we find perfect. And then, as I mentioned, I think it's really, really important in this deck to play very conservatively with your Bowmasters. You know, I'll typically just basically, you always want to use it to try and kill opposing Bowmasters if you possibly can, even if the opponent casts their 1 ring. I mean, now that I've got 2, I could see an argument to using Bowmasters to punish an opposing 1 ring, but for the most part, once you got 1 ring going, you really just want to save Bowmasters to kill opposing Bowmasters if possible. Okay, the opponent preemptively flashes in the Bowmasters, which is fine. We are pretty happy to just activate it now. I guess I probably should have attacked with the Peregrine first, so that was a slight misplay on my part, because now we can't attack with the Peregrine anymore, unfortunately. So missed a free attack, but you know, typically playing a combo deck, missing a few points of damage isn't a huge issue, because we typically tend to win either with the combo, which is essentially infinite damage, or via the 1 ring, which just buries the opponent in card advantage. So hopefully that 2 damage won't end up mattering. And this is the exact kind of spot I was talking about with Bowmasters, where you really want to save Bowmasters to kill opposing ones. Having the second copy here is really nice as well, because if the opponent is sandbagging another Bowmasters to activate, to cast in response to the 1 ring trigger here, we have another one to be able to stop that, which is really nice. Okay, we draw another land, which is decent. Not going to attack with the Peregrine here, just in case they are, you know, waiting with another Bowmasters potentially. And we also kind of want it as a blocker as well, right? They've got a 2/2 in play, so, you know, when we have the ring dealing us 2 damage every single time, we want to have the 2/3 back on defense more than anything else. So they do have a Virtue in play, which is going to get them back Bowmasters. So I'm kind of tempted to fire off Pylon just to try and surveil towards a Haywire Might, but worst case scenario, we do have Beseech here to Beseech for Haywire Might if we need. Oh, but we just found the combo. Okay, perfect. So now we can just go Peregrine into Confectioner, and now it doesn't matter that they have the Virtue in play. We should just be able to win. We can just essentially draw our deck, find Pylons to be able to kill whatever they hit off the Virtue, and then we should just have lethal attacks next turn. Green-black typically doesn't run any main deck sweepers at all, so I very, very much doubt the opponent has a way to beat us here. So we can just keep cracking all these food tokens here. We've also found Haywire Might. We obviously can't activate it this turn, unfortunately, because we only have one land to play this turn, but can still get it into play here. Also, when you're comboing off, using spacebar to submit makes the combo quite a bit quicker, so... But yeah, we should just be good to win here. Unless the opponent is running main deck Gix's Command, we should be good. And even if they do run main deck Gix's Command, we can just keep drawing until we find another Confectioner. Okay, so now we have Beseech plus Peregrine, so we essentially have another way to combo off next turn. You know, we can just go Beseech for... Oh, sorry, go Peregrine and then just Beseech the ring or one of the food tokens to find a Confectioner. So even if the opponent does have a sweeper in their main deck, we can beat that. And this is the really nice thing about the combo, right? Even though you have to wait a turn, it's almost always going to be good enough because of Pylon, right? Even if the opponent has creatures in play, we can just keep drawing until we find Pylon, which I'm going to keep going until at least ideally until I at least find my first copy of Pylon. And obviously, there's a chance that it could just be in the bottom 4 cards of the deck, but I'm going to keep going. You do need to be careful, though, if you are concerned about sweepers, to not go too far through your deck, because you do need to be able to combo off again the following turn. So I'm just going to stop now. Even if the opponent does cast something that we want to be able to kill, we can just activate the combo at instant speed to try and draw into a Pylon. And we already got one in hand, so definitely keep the Pylon, definitely keep Beseech, and I think I want the Bowmasters here, and then what else do we want? Probably a Haywire Might and a One Ring. Oh wait, that was my bad. I should have definitely kept one of the Peregrine Tooks. Sorry, I completely forgot. So yeah, I should have kept a Peregrine Took to be able to combo off next turn, but I think we should be good. We've got 2 Beseeches here to get the combo if we really need anyway. So opponent gets the Bowmasters in play, but I very much doubt it's going to be good enough, right? We've got 35 1/1s in play, so I guess the opponent's trying to dig towards the One Ring. But yeah, opponent just scoops it up, so combo got there, which is pretty nice. So against green-black, I typically only just bring in the Terrace Under and cut a tough cookie. I feel like the main deck's already pretty well set up against them. We've already got the 4 main deck Haywire Mites, and having access to the Terrace Under is just nice, though, because it gives us a 5th answer to their One Ring, and it's also just nicer with Beseech as well, because in the main deck, if you need to Beseech an answer for the opponent's One Ring or Virtue of Persistence, you have to have 5 mana because you need to Beseech for a Haywire Might and then have a spare green to activate it, whereas just having Terrace Under, you can just Beseech for Terrace Under and not need a spare mana, which is pretty nice. And also Terrace Under is just another piece of removal for bigger creatures as well. You know, we can use it with the kicker for 4 mana to kill opposing Shieldreds as well. So sideboarding against these sort of green-black ring mirror matches is pretty simple. I normally just go for the Terrace Under, and that's pretty much it. And typically, because the deck is pretty high synergy, you don't tend to want to sideboard that much. The only matchup where I do sideboard quite a lot is against the Ratadrabik combo, where I bring in the Misery Shadows, but for the most part, you know, you typically sideboard quite lightly, so you can afford to get a bit more specific with your sideboard cards. And Beseech is also pretty nice because it helps you run one-offs in the sideboard that you can tutor as well. But yeah, overall, I felt very, very confident in these mirror matches. I think you really have the edge because you have the combo in addition to the One Ring, which is really difficult for them to beat. Always punishes them for tapping out against you as well. So this is a very awkward hand. I think I'm going to have to mulligan it, unfortunately. This I think I'm going to keep, and I think I'm going to put back the Peregrine Took here, because if we do find a green source, we'd rather have many partings to guarantee that land for Beseech. Okay, so we do find the green source straight away, which is really nice. And then I'm going to many partings. I think we can get a forest here because we already have the 3 black sources for Beseech, which is pretty nice. And then having Haywire Might here is also great because gives us an out to the One Ring if the opponent does have it. And we'll obviously play the Restless Cottage on this turn, where it's very unlikely that they play anything that we want to activate Haywire Might on this turn. So opponent flashes in the Bowmasters, which is a little bit annoying with this Beseech, but we have the Pylon as an answer if we really need, right? But I think even if the opponent has a Bowmasters in play, you typically want to prioritize using Beseech to get the one ring, and then try and draw into an answer. But we already have the pylon here, so I'm not really too concerned about that. Okay, we find another Many Partings, so we are flooding out here a little bit, but as long as they don't have Dreams of Steel and Oil here to get... Oh no, Dreams of Steel and Oil doesn't even work on Beseech. I mean, as long as they don't have Duress here, which I don't know if they'll have brought in against us, because we don't actually have that many non-creatures in the deck. So opponent playing around Bowmasters here, which is nice, prevents us taking extra damage. Although, to be fair, if we have Bowmasters, I don't think... You know, we would just use the Bowmasters to kill theirs anyway, so I'm not sure it makes that much sense for them not to attack with both creatures there. But either way, we get to get the one ring down here. Oh, wow. They have a second Bowmasters here, which is a bit annoying. So that is a little bit unfortunate. I think I'm just going to not activate the one ring here. I don't think it's worth drawing a card to give them two Bowmasters triggers, and then next time we can use Beseech to get Bowmasters to kill one of theirs. And then we can potentially use... Pylon in order to kill the second one. So I'm going to use Beseech here to get Bowmasters, and again I think this might mean that we don't activate the one ring this turn, because if we get Bowmasters and then activate the one ring, they're just going to use their Bowmasters to kill ours, which is obviously, you know, really not great. We want to keep this Bowmasters in play if possible. If they kill the Bowmasters here... Yeah, okay, so they kill the Bowmasters, so now I don't mind activating the one ring as much, because there's not, you know, them dealing 1 point of damage to us directly isn't as bad as them killing our Bowmasters, so... They do obviously get to kill our amass token, but I'm not too concerned about that, to be honest. I'm just debating whether I want to activate Many Partings first. The argument for not is in case we draw Haywire Might. If we draw Haywire Might, we might want to use that spare green mana. I think I'm just going to pass, though. Again, I just don't want to give them... They're missing land drops, so I don't want to give them any extra unnecessary Bowmasters activations. They're kind of forcing my hand here with the Haywire Might, though. So my plan there was to use Pylon during the upkeep and then start activating the one ring. Maybe it was better to do it during the main phase, though, but either way, it didn't really end up mattering. You know, they kind of forced the activation with the Haywire Might, which isn't really too much of a concern, so... Now we are flooding out quite a lot, but we do have Pylon as an answer for their Bowmasters, and the opponent is missing lands as well, so I still feel pretty good about this spot. Now we've got Haywire Might as an answer for the one ring, but their fourth land is tapped, which is obviously great for us. So we could... I think I'm going to use Pylon... Well, I don't know. We have to kill the Bowmasters at some point, because... All of our proactive plays, like the one ring and the combo, both get punished by Bowmasters. And Pylon is obviously good at digging us to something. Wow, that's a huge surveil. So we would have been really flooding out if we hadn't surveilled those two lands away. Now I think I'm happy to crack the food here, though. Get us back up to 16, which is pretty nice. Okay, we find Tear Asunder interesting. So we could obviously fire up the Restless Cottage here, but I feel like... You know, the opponent obviously has a lot of gas in hand because they've been missing land drops. So I don't just want to fire up the Restless Cottage into a removal spell here. And it also prevents them from attacking with the 3-3 as well. So I think it's best to use the Restless Cottage on defense here. So the opponent does have the Mirex here, but I think it's probably a good sign that they're playing reactively here. It probably means that they don't have that much proactive stuff and they're just holding on to a bunch of removal. Well, having said that, I feel like they probably would have used removal on Haywire Might, so I feel like they must have Go for the Throats here. Or they would have just killed the Haywire Might anyway. Although having said that, they could potentially attack with the 3-3s and then use Go for the Throat to kill the Restless Cottage. But I feel like they probably just feel like they can just play the slow game here and just, you know, win off the back of Mirex. Okay, so we do draw Shieldred. But I feel like this is just going to die to a Go for the Throat from how they've been playing. I really wouldn't be surprised if it just dies to a Go for the Throat straight away. And again, maybe they're holding their removal. You know, maybe they don't want to kill the Haywire Might until they find the one ring. Yeah, do have to Go for the Throat, so not a huge surprise. And they also probably are worried about the combo as well, right? So maybe they don't want to attack, use their removal on the Restless Cottage, and then just die to me comboing off the following turn. So, and they probably do have the inevitability here with Mirex, and they also have the Virtue as well. But we obviously have the Haywire Might that can just answer that straight away. So. Okay, so they attack with everything. So we'll obviously fire up the Restless Cottage, but again, would not be at all surprised if they just use a removal spell on it here. Wow, they don't. Okay, that must mean they've got a Bowmasters here then, I assume. Because they can Bowmasters, kill the Haywire Might, yeah. I mean, even though we do kind of get blown out by Bowmasters here, I feel like we're kind of forced into the block. We can't start taking a bunch of poison damage here, I don't think. So we do lose both creatures, but we do also make their board a lot smaller. Oh, there's Beseech. Okay, that was a good top deck. So now we can Beseech the food token. And even though they have a Bowmasters in play, I think it's still probably correct to go for the One Ring here. You know, we're kind of at parity, you know, and getting the One Ring in play to start pulling us ahead is going to be a pretty big deal. We do also have Terrace Thunder, which we can use to kill their Bowmasters. I'm going to wait until their turn to do anything, though. So they do kind of tap out for the One Ring here. I think I'm just going to use the Terrace Thunder now, kill the Bowmasters, and then activate the One Ring. Although, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of soft to the opponent them playing the One Ring, so I'm just going to wait. Maybe that's incorrect. Maybe I should have used the Terrace Thunder there. But again, the other thing I'm worried about here is Shieldred. I feel like Shieldred is more of an issue than Bowmasters. So I'll see. I'll see what the opponent does first. The other thing is that that Virtue is also face up here as well. Okay, they do have Shieldred, so pretty glad that I waited with the Terrace Thunder. I'm going to activate the One Ring first here, just to see what we find. Because I'm always going to prioritize killing the Shieldred first here, while the One Ring is only on one counter. So I'm just going to activate first just to see if we draw our own Bowmasters or go for the Throat, for example. So I presume they don't have a second Bowmasters, or they probably would have flashed it in. Oh, okay, perfect. I was going to say we probably forced to activate the One Ring to try and find an answer, but we just drew Bowmasters off the top, which is kind of best possible in this spot, I think. Now, they could obviously have another Bowmasters, but I feel like they probably would have played it last turn if they did have it. Okay, 6. And now we've got Peregrine Took plus Mirrex, which is a really nice kind of mini combo here. Now, again, they've been playing quite reactively, so I feel like they probably have a removal spell here, yeah. They do. We'll activate the Mirrex in response just to get an extra food token. And now we do potentially face down, you know, the poison damage off these Mirrex tokens from the opponent, but we've already got the 1/1 token as a blocker here. And we've obviously got the One Ring online, so I'm not too concerned about these 1/1 tokens, right? If the opponent doesn't have an answer for our One Ring here, we should be pretty good. They do get to remove all of our Orcish Bowmasters, but Bowmasters is at its best when it's killing opposing Bowmasters in this deck, or, you know, enabling Pylon or Beseech, which we have the mana and the resources for already, so I don't think losing our Bowmasters here is really that much of an issue, to be honest. Wow, they choose not to attack with the Amass token, which I'm very happy about. So we do take a couple of extra poison damage, but I'm really not too worried about it. I feel like the opponent doesn't have a good answer for the One Ring, or they would have played it already. So we get to draw 3 here, which is huge. Now we have Peregrine and Tough Cookie. So now I feel really good. We have a ton of mana and Tough Cookie. I probably should have manually tapped. So now we only have enough mana for 1 Tough Cookie activation. I definitely should have manually tapped and left one of those Llanowar Elves. Llanowar Wastes untapped so that we can get 2 activations off the Tough Cookie. Okay, opponent does have the end for the Peregrine, so that does mean that we no longer have access to the combo, but that honestly doesn't really matter, to be honest, because with the One Ring online, we still have Tough Cookie, we still have Shieldred in the deck, we have, you know, plenty of ways to close the game out outside of the combo, so even though the opponent does cut us off that, I feel like we're still in a great position to win here. Okay, opponent takes the trade there, very happy to see that. Now, presumably they probably play the Virtue, but we have a lot of ways to dig for... Ah, okay, they top deck the Terrace Thunder, so that's a little scary, because now if they play the Virtue, we don't have an immediate answer, and we don't have a good way to dig for one either. But we do have the Tough Cookie here, and we can start turning these foods into 4/4s to start applying pressure. Wow, okay, we found another Tough Cookie here, so... Okay, don't want to make the same mistake we did last turn. Okay, I think that's fine. We can auto-tap that, because we have 2 green sources in play that aren't Llanowar Wastes, still untapped, so... Gonna animate these 2 and just attack with the 4/4s. I am a little bit worried about their Restless Cottage. We do need to be wary of them firing that up, so I don't want to go all-out attack here, and I do want to get this second Tough Cookie in play as well. Okay, maybe I did mess up with them not manually tapping, actually, because now, unfortunately, we don't have the extra Tough Cookie activation here. But I feel like the opponent can't afford to fire up the Restless Cottage here because we have such a faster clock now. And now we've got 3 food tokens in play. We're representing a lot of damage on the backswing here. So if they do tap out for the Virtue, I think we just win. So Tough Cookie, you know, really, really solid in these spots where the opponent expends a lot of resources shutting off the combo. And then we can just kill them with Tough Cookie and food tokens. Okay, land off the top. So I think we should just win here, right? Even if they hold open the Restless Cottage, we should have enough power to win here. Wow, and ring off the top, but I don't think that should end up mattering. Okay, now I'll manually tap. You know, don't want to make the same mistake again. So now we can just turn all these foods into 4/4s, and even if the opponent blocks one of them, I feel like we should still have lethal, because these Mirrex tokens obviously can't block, so now we just activate the Tough Cookie again. And I think we can just attack with everything here, right? So opponent presumably fires up the Restless Cottage here, blocks one of the 4/4s, and then we just deal 13 damage here, I think. Unless I'm missing something. So yeah, we got there, nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And yeah, this looks pretty good to me. Right, we got Tough Cookie on turn 2, Peregrine Took on turn 3, and then, you know, if we can draw a Beseech or a Confectioner, we're potentially, you know, threatening the combo on the following turn, which is pretty nice. Again, we do have Bowmasters potentially on turn 2, but you want to be playing super conservatively with Bowmasters. You really want to try and use it to kill opposing Bowmasters if possible. Wow, against Reprieve, huh? So, don't know what Abzan... Oh, wow. 4 color. Okay, I don't know what we're up against here. Maybe... Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. Either way, I'm just going to jam the Peregrine Took here. I want to be mana efficient if possible. And if they do have another counter spell, I'd much rather them use it on Peregrine Took than the One Ring next turn. Okay, they do have Bowmasters, so that could potentially be a reason to not just jam the Ring next turn. You know, we could potentially go Tough Cookie into kill the Bowmasters. Wow, Ratadrabik. Okay, so... Could potentially be the combo with Boromir, maybe? Not 100% sure. So, we could just jam the One Ring here, which is, you know, obviously a pretty good play, and then we could just follow up with Bowmasters the following turn. But... I don't know. I think I like going for Bowmasters first here, because then that also just gives us the possibility of using Pylon as well. Now, unfortunately, obviously, Ratadrabik has Ward 2, so if they do happen to go, you know, Boromir into Elasil Core, I'm not sure there's a great way that we can stop that. But, you know, we at least have access to Pylon now. So we could potentially Pylon the Ratadrabik instead of going for the One Ring. If we had one more mana, obviously, the best case scenario would be going One Ring into Pylon. Okay, opponent had the second Bowmasters, so I'm very, very happy that we went down this line. The other awkward thing is the opponent obviously has 2 Plaza of Heroes as well, but with the One Ring, I'm very, very happy that we took this line. Now we get to get rid of the second Bowmasters, and... Because if we'd have gone One Ring and they had the second Bowmasters, I think we're in a lot of trouble there. I guess we could still go, you know, Bowmasters... Oh, wow, okay. I mean, I think we're pretty happy to keep that. But yeah, if they... we could have still gone, you know, Bowmasters into Pylon the following turn, but... You know, we denied them a lot of amass triggers doing it this way around. And I'm definitely going to keep the second Beseech on top, because even though it's probably going to get shuffled away here, they could potentially have Reprieve again. And having a second Beseech is going to be nice. So here I'm going to go for Beseech rather than the One Ring, because it can just give us the combo, right? We can use Beseech to find Confectioner and just go off. Which I think is, again, what I'm going to be doing next turn. We still have enough foods in play to be able to do that. Wow, okay, so they got War... So they're almost certainly going to be on the combo here then, right? I presume they get Elasil Core here and then just get Boromir next turn. So if they do that, I'll be very happy. That then enables us to combo off, and then thankfully we can go Beseech into the combo and still have 2 mana spare to use Pylon. So we can just draw through our deck until we find Pylon, use Pylon to kill Ratadrabik, then use a second Pylon to kill Eleasil Core, and then it doesn't really matter. We're not really under any threat of dying to their combo at this point then. So now we get the Confectioner in play, and now we get to draw our deck. So basically we're just digging for Pylon, right? We've already used one, so it might take a little while to find it, but thankfully this combo isn't anywhere near as bad as previous Alchemy combos, right? Especially getting enough lethal attackers in play, because you get 3 every single loop. But, you know, compared to the Ignis loop or the Trap Finder deck, this is a lot easier to execute. You just got to click on the foods quickly and then use spacebar for submit, and you can get through most of your deck in one turn. You know, I've never really risked timing out. And especially against this deck, I don't think we need to worry about going through... Oh, hold on. We don't have to worry about going through too much of our deck, really, because I very, very much doubt they have any sweepers. Okay, perfect. So we found the Pylon. So now we can just tap the 4 rat tokens here to convoke it, and then we still have the 2 mana spare to pay for the ward. And then that's Ratadrabik down. I think I want to dig for a second Pylon to be able to kill the Eleasil Core, just in case they have a Ratadrabik in hand. But yeah, we'll just keep cracking the food tokens here, try and find more Pylons. I feel like as long as we can keep drawing Pylon, there's basically no chance, because if we keep the Eleasil Core alive, they can potentially search for Boromir or search for Ratadrabik if they have the other one in hand. So we definitely want to keep going until we find at least one more Pylon, which we've only got 2 left in the deck, so... You know, if they're right near the bottom, this might be a bit sketchy, but even if we do time out during our turn, we can just go off again during the opponent's upkeep, because we can combo off at instant speed, so I think we should be good, right? Even if Pylon are the bottom 2 cards of the deck, I think we should still win, right? Because we have enough time to find the first copy, and then as long as we take out the Eleasil Core, it's impossible for them to combo off next turn, and we'll have, like, you know, an insane amount of lethal attackers. Yeah, opponent just keeps it up. So against the Ratadrabik combo, this is definitely the matchup for Misery's Shadow for sure. The end is pretty interesting here, right? This is the sort of matchup where you'd think you'd want the end. We can cut the Haywire Mites because I doubt they're running the One Ring. They could be though, but we'll have to see. But this is the sort of matchup where you think you'd want the end. I think I'll keep in 1 Haywire Mite actually as a Beseech target, just in case they are running the One Ring. Yeah, the end is interesting here because it is, you know, in theory great against their deck because hitting their combo pieces is great, but 2 out of their 3 combo pieces are pretty bad against the end, right? You need 6 mana to take out Ratadrabik with the end, and Boromir can sacrifice itself at instant speed, so the end isn't even that good against Ratadrabik. So I think the end is basically here for the mirror match. I don't think I actually like the end against this specific combo because 2 of the 3 combo pieces are very good against the end specifically. But I definitely won't go for the throat because... You know, it takes out Ratadrabik for 4 mana. It can take out any other early legendary creatures that they've got as well. So, plus we saw Bowmasters. I presume they'll have Shieldred in their deck as well. So having more answers to those is obviously going to be nice as well. So I think we can keep this hand, right? We've got... Probably not going to cast the Bowmasters on 2 unless the opponent plays theirs. But we've got Confectioner into Beseech for the ring, which is really nice. Little light on interaction, but we can obviously Beseech for Pylon if we did need interaction for something. Okay, we drew Misery Shadow, perfect. So they are running a slightly different build to Ratadrabik builds they've seen in the past with stuff like Bowmasters, but Misery Shadow, I mean, typically those sorts of decks are very creature heavy and don't have that much interaction, so I'm hoping this copy of Misery Shadow is just going to stop them from comboing for quite a while. So here, I think I'm just going to be more mana efficient with the Confectioner. You know, Misery Shadow, we really want to get in play before they combo off, but without any combo pieces in play, they need, 9 mana to get the combo in play from nothing. And I would much rather them use Go for the Throat on Confectioner than Misery Shadow, so I'm pretty happy about how that went. If they cast Ratadrabik here... Wow, they go for Stone Brain. Okay, so again, there's no rush to get Misery Shadow back into play here because they're so far away from their own combo. Be interesting to see what they take with the Stone Brain here. With our hand, I'd be most annoyed if they take the ring, but I feel like they're probably incentivized to take one of the combo pieces. Yeah, they take the Peregrine Took, so now we're just probably going to beat them with the ring. Like, this is the great thing about this deck. If the opponent focuses on taking out the combo pieces, we still have the ring, we still have Tough Cookie, We still have Shield Red. I mean, in this matchup, we have Misery Shadow, which is a decent standalone threat as well, because we can start pumping it up once we have mana as well. So, yeah, this is the real strength of this build. There's just so many different angles of attack. So, opponent's probably just looking at our list, seeing how we've sideboarded here. So, we do now no longer have access to the combo, but the opponent has literally nothing in play, and we're going to get the ring here. So, okay, I put the forest in play, but might have been better to do the swamp. I don't think it really matters. They are playing a creature deck, but they're not really playing an aggro deck, so hopefully that 1 life won't end up mattering. And I did that just to conceal the information of the draw, but I don't think that's really very big. So maybe I should have just played the swamp there to conserve a life, but either way, I feel really good about this spot. We have another Beseech in hand to be able to fetch whatever we need. Even though we don't have access to the combo, the ring is just going to bury them in card advantage, and we have Misery Shadow to shut off their combo as well, so... Okay, there is Boromir, but we do have the Misery Shadow here, so... And we also have our own Bowmasters, so if they are sandbagging a Bowmasters, we can just kill theirs in response. Shielded's a nice draw, but again, we need to have mana open for our Bowmasters here in case they have theirs. And now at this point, I think we do have to put Misery Shadow into play, because if they go untap land, they can potentially go Ratadrabik into Elasil Core. And the nice thing about holding our own Bowmasters here is that we probably prevent them from attacking because we can buff our Shadow here. Now they can potentially go for the throat into the combo, but that would be like best possible from them. Wow, okay. I mean, I guess I'm kind of surprised that they saved their Bowmasters there, but they knew that we had our own Bowmasters, right? So guess that makes sense. Gonna use my Bowmasters now because again, I'm not too familiar with their build. And if they are running protection spells of any kind, them using them to protect Bowmasters is going to be an issue with this 1 ring in play. So I'm just going to fire it off now, because we will be doing it during the end of the opponent's turn anyway. So I think it just makes sense to do it proactively while they're tapped out. Okay, there's Ratadrabik, but this Misery Shadow does shut them off. You know, not only the combo, but also this kind of lock they can set up where they can just sacrifice Boromir in order to give their board indestructible at any point. So... interesting spot here. I'm going to go for Shield Red, just because that will really solidify our position. If the opponent is sandbagging a removal spell into the combo piece, then that is a bit annoying, but they would need to draw perfectly. You know, they would need to have a removal spell here and draw the Elasil Core off the top. The other line I was considering is using Beseech to sacrifice the Orcish Bowmasters token to get a second Misery Shadow into play, because the worry here is that they could use the end exiling the Misery Shadow, and then we don't have any extra copies in our deck anymore. But we're going to be drawing a ton off the 1 ring anyway. Shielded is going to start pressuring them, so they have fewer draw steps to find outs to this situation. So, oh wow, okay, they did have the end, so that is a little bit sketchy. Now they get to get rid of all the Misery Shadows, but again, you know, we have Beseech here, which we can use to kill the Ratadrabik anyway, and they are completely out of cards. They're tapped out of Plaza of Heroes as well, so... even though they did have one of the lines that I was a little bit worried about, I still think we're in a really good spot here. You know, if they had another card in hand, I think it would be a different story, but as things stand, I feel pretty good about this spot. Okay, another land off the top isn't great, but we get to draw another 4 cards here. Okay, perfect. And we found Pylon, so definitely going to fire this Pylon off before they get to untap with the Plaza of Heroes. I think I'm going to attack first, though, because if they try to double block, we're good. If they try to block with the Boromir, we can flash in Bowmasters to kill it. Okay, so they just let the damage through, which makes a lot of sense. I think I just want to apply pressure here, to be honest. You know, they could obviously draw Bowmasters off the top, which would punish us for doing this, but we don't have to activate the 1 ring at this point either. So now I'm just going to try and maximize damage. You know, reduce the amount of turns they get, and then... oh, no, wait, I forgot to use Pylon during the main phase. Oh, no, that was a big mistake on my part, because now if they draw Elasil Core, if we try and Pylon the Ratadrabik, they can use Plaza of Heroes to protect it. Oh, yeah, okay. Didn't get punished for it, thankfully. Yeah, so I completely forgot. I was supposed to convoke this Pylon during our main phase while they were tapped out of Plaza mana Thankfully, you know, we would have only got punished if they drew exactly Elasil Core there, but... Or, I guess, Smeagol as well, if they're running that. But thankfully, they didn't draw that, so... Got away with it. Okay, yeah, that was a huge mistake on my part, but thankfully we didn't end up getting punished for it. But now we can activate the One Ring again. Okay, we drew Go for the Throat, so that's... Now we don't have to worry about it, right? We can pile on, and if they crack Plaza to protect, we can just go for the Throat in response, but... Not ideal. Should have definitely done that last time, and that was my bad. So how do we want to do this? I think we'll attack first, right? No real risk in doing that, I don't think. Now we have 2 removal spells. So we'll see what they do. They might try and block, I don't know. But yeah, either way, I can't see any way that we lose this game now. Unless I just blunder again, but... I guess opponent's considering blocking here and protecting with Boromir. So they crack the Boromir. And I think we need to use our removal now, right? So we go for the Throat. Presumably they use the Plaza now. And then we can just convoke the Pylon. Wow, opponent uses Plaza now. Okay, so that was a slight misplay from the opponent. They should have waited for us to play the ward tax, but it shouldn't end up mattering, hopefully. Now we can just pile on, pay the 2. Ratadrabik goes down. Yeah, opponent just keeps it out, so we got there. Nice. Okay, so on the play here, and I can't keep a no-lander, unfortunately. This one looks a lot better, though. It's a little bit annoying having 2 Llanowar Waste. That might do us a lot of damage, but hopefully that won't end up mattering. Aggro isn't really a big thing in the format, so... But yeah, definitely going to keep this one. I'm probably going to put back a Pylon here, and then we've got Haywire Might on turn 1. With the 27 land deck, I think we're pretty likely to hopefully curve out lands 3 and 4, and then we can either use... Haywire Might is a bargain enabler for Beseech, or potentially Bowmasters, although I typically prefer to hold on to Bowmasters. So opponent leads on Halfling, and they're playing Simic, which is interesting, or might be Sultai. Definitely going to attack with the Haywire Might here, because, you know, in this sort of spot, I wouldn't be adverse to playing out the Bowmasters early to enable Pylon to ensure that we keep hitting land drops here. Obviously, it will depend on what the opponent plays. You know, typically I prefer to hold on to Bowmasters, but... Okay, so just cast the Mosswood Dread Knight out as a creature. I assume they don't attack with the Halfling. I think with my current hand, I'm forced to use the Bowmasters here, which I'm really not happy about. I really generally prefer holding on to Bowmasters, but this does enable us to pile on the Halfling, which I think is a decent line here, right? Because it then stops them playing Ring next turn, and hopefully digs us towards more lands. Missing our 3rd land drop here is a nightmare. And Pylon can obviously try and help us find our 4th land here as well. The other advantage to getting Bowmasters in play is that we have the Amass token to use with Beseech to try and find the ring, which I think is probably the line I'm going to go for here. And even if we do find a land off the top... Oh, perfect. Okay, 2 lands on top. One of them we can play tap this turn while we don't have anything else to cast. And we still have the green available to kill a ring if the opponent does cast it. Well, I guess they're not going to cast the ring this turn because we took out the Halfling, but... You know, if they do cast some other artifact or enchantment we want to be able to kill, we have the mana here. Okay, so opponent casts a Dread Knight, which is fine. Now we can go for Beseech into the ring. The opponent doesn't have mana available to cast their own Bowmasters here, which is pretty huge. We do have to take 2 off the Llanowar Waste, which is a bit annoying when we're getting the 1 ring, but we do have the Shielded in hand, which can hopefully undo some of that damage, particularly if the opponent does play a ring of their own. Now, we could definitely get punished here if the opponent has Bowmasters, because Shielded is obviously good with the ring, but, you know, it's not going to be able to stop Bowmasters if the opponent does have their own. But we'll have to see what they've got. Okay, so they tear us under the ring, which is actually alright, because we drew another Beseech, so we can bargain the Haywire Might, which gains us 3 life and hopefully gets us another ring. Now, having said that, the opponent does have 2 mana open here, which could potentially be at Bowmasters. I'm not too worried about counterspells. Very few decks are running counterspells. Only the decks that are running the new Fairy typically run counterspells from my experience. So, I'm kind of having to unlearn to play around Make Disappear. And then I would typically want to wait until the opponent's upkeep. I'll set a stop during the upkeep to activate the ring. But Arena was giving away. They didn't have priority there. So I knew that they didn't have Bowmasters of their own, so that's why I activated it main phase. If Arena wasn't leaking information, then I would definitely set a stop during the upkeep and activate it then instead. So opponent's definitely trying to apply pressure. They can't really afford to use the sorcery side of Mosswood Dread Knight while we have Bowmasters in play, but that then gives us the all clear to go for Shieldred here, which gains us a lot of life back. And unless they have a removal spell, makes it impossible for them to attack. Now, if they do have Go for the Throat, they do attack for quite a lot of damage here. But if they don't happen to have a removal spell, they're in trouble here. Okay, they do have a Ring of their own, but it's very risky for them to activate because we have both Bowmasters and Shieldred. Yeah, opponent just scoops up. That game would have looked differently if they had a removal spell for Shieldred, but thankfully they didn't. So here, even though we are against Sultai, some Sultai decks I bring in Duress against, but it looks like the opponent's more on Sultai mid-range than counterspells. I mean, obviously there's a good chance they could board into something like Disdainful Stroke against me, but without seeing too much more of the deck, I don't want to miss sideboard. I think you could make the argument for bringing in one Duress maybe as a card that you can dig through your deck for when you're trying to combo off, but typically against the blue decks, I prefer Duress as a way to get rid of counterspells rather than sweepers, so from what we saw of the opponent's deck, I think I'm pretty happy just bringing in the Terra Sunder. I don't want to over sideboard, it could just be a very light blue splash. It might not even be counterspells that they're using the blue splash for, so we'll have to see. But yeah, I typically tend to not want to over sideboard, particularly in a high synergy deck like this. I'd rather wait to see what the blue splash is for than try and preempt it, if that makes sense. So obviously on the draw here, and to be honest, I found all of these mid-range matchups to be pretty favourable for us, right? The fact that we have a combo in the deck is really nice because it means the onus isn't on us to apply pressure early because we have access to the combo, right? I feel like in these mid-range mirror matches, you're often kind of forced to, apply pressure early if you do get off to a fast start, whereas because we have the combo, we're not forced into dodgy attacks into potential Bowmasters because we have the inevitability as the game goes long. Because of the combo, if that makes sense. So here's an interesting spot where we want to get a swamp or a forest. I think since we have triple swamp, we could make the argument for going for forest here, but I think I'm just going to go for another swamp just because I don't want to leak information, and we very rarely actively need two forests in the same turn. Once you have the first green source, that's usually good. I mean, I guess the exception to that is with Tough Cookie, but I feel like, the risk there with getting forest is that I don't want to attack, obviously, but yeah, the opponent then gets free information. But maybe I should have got forest. I think it's pretty close. So they go for the Throat the Peregrine Took, which I think is fine, and they attack. Okay, so we are flooding out here a little bit, which is pretty annoying. We could obviously go for Mirex to give us something to do with our mana, but I think I'm going to take this opportunity to play the rest of this cottage tapped, and then we still have access to Pylon here if we need, as well as Bowmasters, obviously. So they're respecting Bowmasters, which is obviously great for us. I'm not going to flash it in now because we really want to save this Bowmasters in order to kill opposing Bowmasters. Going to run out the other Haywire Might here, which does mean that we can't activate the cottage. I guess we're 1 mana away from activating the cottage anyway, but this then means that we can still activate our own Mirex, which is nice. So opponent playing it quite slow here makes me think they've probably got quite a lot of interaction if they're not willing to develop to the board. They're still playing around Bowmasters, which is great for us, though. If they were attacking every turn, it would be awkward because it might force us to use the Bowmasters, which then leaves us vulnerable to opposing Bowmasters. So I'm pretty happy just passing and both of us using Mirex here. Now, obviously, the opponent has 2 Mirex, so if they can get to 8 mana, they can start making 2 tokens a turn, but I'm pretty happy with things as they stand. I'm quite happy for this board to be stalled. We have Pylon if they do find a big creature, and I feel like we typically have better top decks because of the combo. But yeah, I'm pretty happy to just trade Mirex tokens back and forth. We have Bowmasters, which can be a blowout if they do choose to attack with everything at any point. And we have the Restless Cottage as well, plus Pylons if they do play anything. And we have the Haywire Might for the ring, so I feel pretty good about this spot. The fact the opponent isn't developing too much is probably decent for us here. We are getting close to the point where the opponent might start being able to activate both Mirexes though, which is a little bit of a concern. You know, that could be one way that they pull ahead, but looks like they're starting to miss land drops, so that's obviously big for us. Okay, they found another one. We'll make another Mirex token here. Okay, we find another cottage. So this just highlights the value of the single Mirex in the deck. If we didn't have that and the opponent was the only one making tokens here, we'd be falling behind pretty hard, you know. We'd be forced to commit a little bit more, which makes us a lot more vulnerable. Wow, they attack in here, so... I think with 2 pylons, I'm probably alright using this Bowmasters here. That not only kills one of their tokens, but we can obviously trade one of their other tokens with our... Amass as well. We could have obviously used the Restless Cottage as well, but I think I prefer holding mana open for Pylon here in case the opponent has their own Bowmasters. Could consider firing up the Cottage though as a way to just block the Dread Knight, and we still have access to Pylon if we do that, so... Just debating whether, like, the risk of the opponent having a go for the throat or something like that. But I think I'm alright with it, right? This kind of forces the opponent. If they don't use anything here, this combat is really bad for the opponent because we can cleanly kill the Dread Knight. While they use Urtai. Interesting. Okay, so that's one of the things they're using the blue splash for. That's good to know they're running that. So we'll tap the land for mana before it dies, obviously. And we get to draw a card here, which is pretty nice. That's another land, though. Not great. So I think we've got pretty easy blocks here, right? Not going to block with the Bowmasters, but we can just trade down with 3 tokens, so I'm pretty happy with this exchange, right? Unless the opponent has something else to blow us out in combat here. This was a pretty good exchange for us. They could obviously have Bowmasters to pick off the Haywire Mites here, but doesn't look like they do, which is obviously great for us. And we draw another Bowmasters off the top, which is really nice, so I'm pretty happy about this spot, right? We can attack here and then potentially threaten killing the Urtai if they do block with it. Yeah, I feel like we should probably attack because, you know, these 1/1 mites can't block anyway. Now we're really ahead on the mite race, so we're much more likely to, you know, get the opponent down or start ticking the poison count up. And the opponent only has 1 token, so now we're really far ahead on board. Obviously, we are quite vulnerable to opposing Bowmasters, but we don't have the One Ring, we don't have the combo yet, so we're not really going to get punished by drawing extra cards here. And we still have 2 pylons here as well. Yeah, opponent cast is shielded, so we can very easily answer that with the pylon. Now, we do need to be wary of another Urtai or another counterspell, but we have enough creatures to be able to convoke this, well, both of them out if they do have a counterspell. Yeah, so they've got a Disdainful Stroke. Thankfully, we have the second pylon here, so very good exchange for us here again. And now the opponent's in trouble where they're just, you know, surveilling away 2 lands there is great. But yeah, now we have a lot of power in play. I think the opponent's going to, you know, struggle to race us here. And we draw a ring off the top, which is great. So, I think I want to cast the ring first here because, or the logic with casting the ring first here is that if they have Bowmasters, we can cast the ring, and then then attack, and then if the opponent has Bowmasters, we can activate the ring before combat. Oh, sorry, we can activate the ring in response to them flashing the Bowmasters in to try and interact with us in combat, but I think I'm going to attack first here, just to see what they've got. And I'm not going to attack, you know, we could have attacked with everything, but I think that's too risky. But, you know, we don't have them that close to lethal yet, so... And now we can go for the Bomb Ring while they don't have counterspells up. And even though I feel like they probably would have flashed in Bowmasters already if they have it, I'm still going to wait until their upkeep because they could have Terrace Under here. Yeah, they do have Terrace Under, so I'm glad I waited on the activation. Now we, you know, that's another 2 for 1 in our favour, so I feel pretty good about this spot now. Now, the opponent obviously does know that we're on the combo, so they could have a sweeper. Okay, they do have Shielded, but I don't think that's going to be enough, right? They need Shielded plus a removal spell here to just stay alive. Oh, they have the One Ring as well. And, okay, I think we could have tapped slightly differently so we have green mana available. If the opponent activates the One Ring here, we can't kill it in response with the Haywire Might, so I think I maybe tapped my land slightly wrong, but looks like the opponent's waiting, which is obviously great for us. Okay, we draw Pylon off the top, which is sick. So I think we go Confectioner and then Pylon maybe. Or we could just fire up the Restless Cottage. Maybe that's better. I mean, actually, no, wait. I forgot they had the protection from the ring. So here, I think I'm going to preemptively kill the Shieldred to force them to activate the One Ring now. And then we just kill it with the Haywire Might in response. Yeah, so they activate the ring. And actually, I think I was going to use the Haywire Might, but I think I'm actually happy giving them a card to kill the Dread Knight here. You know, it does gain them a life, but getting their blocker out of the play, and they can't really, you know, if they use the, okay, we'll keep the Beseech there. Yeah, if they use the Dread Knight to draw a card, that's gonna give us 2 Bowmaster's triggers here. Maybe that was wrong though. I could see an argument to just taking the ring out, but I feel like taking out the Dread Knight is pretty good there. Actually, yeah, I mean, the card that we gave them could have been that Bowmaster's, so maybe that was too risky. Maybe that was greedy. I'm supposed to just kill the ring straight away there. Particularly if they have another removal spell here. Thrun is interesting, okay. But, I mean, not only is this not going to be good enough on defense, we also have Beseech the Mirror here, which can find us the Peregrine Took to combo off. So, yeah, we have a lot of ways to win here. So opponent's at 7. They're taking 1 from the One Ring anyway. Even if they have another removal spell here, I think we can just attack for lethal. And then if they do block the Confectioner, we can just combo off main phase 2. But I think this should be good. So yeah, we got there. Nice. Okay, so we're on the play here. And yeah, this hand looks great to me, right? We've got Haywire Might into... Well, Haywire Might on turn 2 because we're going to play both these cottages tapped in the first few turns. And then Peregrine Took on 3 into either Beseech into the ring, or we could potentially try and use Beseech to get Confectioner. We'll have to see how the game plays out, but we can go Haywire Might on turn 1 here. Then Peregrine Took, and then we'll have to see what the opponent does. Okay, nothing here. So I'm going to play out the Peregrine Took first. Just in case, if they use a removal spell on the Took, then we can attack with the Haywire Might. But if they don't, I'm not going to attack with the Might, because we don't want to, you know, give them a 2-for-1 off Bowmasters here. Huh, interesting. So we could obviously go Beseech, sacrificing the Haywire Might for a One Ring here. What I'm going to do is attack with the Peregrine Took just to see if they use a removal spell. If they have a go for the throat, then we'll definitely use Beseech. If they don't, I think I'm going to play Restless Cottage here. And then if the opponent goes for the ring or something, we can flash in Bowmasters, get to the Amass token. Okay, perfect. They tap out. Okay, they've got a single black mana, so they could have cut down here, but... Okay, Arena's giving away priority, so now we can flash in Bowmasters, which gives us a food token off the Peregrine Took, and now we can just use Beseech, sacrificing the Haywire Might to get Confectioner, which just hopefully wins us the game on the spot. Well, I mean, Arena's giving away priority that they don't have anything. Actually, no, wait, that was a mistake. I could have sacrificed the 1/1 token from Bowmasters instead. I mean, the opponent doesn't have anything here, so it shouldn't end up mattering, right? We can just win with the combo. I mean, I guess... If they have the One Ring, then we might be in trouble. But I feel like if they had the One Ring, they probably would have cast it last turn rather than the Glisser. So yeah, I definitely should have sacrificed the Amass token instead of the Haywire Might. But hopefully it shouldn't end up mattering here, right? We can just keep drawing through our whole deck. You know, want to keep going until we find another Took and another Confectioner. And ideally a Pylon as well. But yeah, we should be good. I very much doubt many... Golgari lists are running supers in the main deck. The only one I can think of is maybe Gix's Command, which very, very rarely see that in the main deck. And even if it is, it's usually as a one-off, so they need to have it immediately. And even then, like I said, we can just keep going until we find another Peregrine Took, and then we have the combo to go again on turn... well, once we have 6 mana. But yeah, this is almost always going to be good enough to win the game. So we just keep going. Again, I do want to find the combo again, so I'll probably keep going until we find at least another Beseech or another Peregrine, and ideally we'd find another Pylon as well. But yeah, we should just be good here. You know, we've already got 30 attackers in play, so unless the opponent can chain rings together or they do have a main deck sweeper, we should be good. And even if they do have a main deck sweeper, I think we'll be fine. Right, now we have Took and Confectioner to go again after a sweeper if they do have one. Do want to make sure I don't go through the whole deck though, because if they do happen to have, you know, land 5 into Gix's command, we do need a decent amount of cards still left in the deck to be able to combo off again. Okay, we found a Pylon, that's really good. Ideally, the other card I'm looking for here is Haywire Might. I kind of regret stacking it now, because if they do have a One Ring, I'd much rather be able to kill it straight away to stop them drawing into another potential ring. But Beseech the Mirror does the same thing, so I think I'll stop once I find one of them. Or I could just stop now, to be honest. They would need like the best possible to survive. Just going to check the deck. Still got 30 cards left in it, so I think we can go a little bit more. But yeah, I think we should be good, right? We've got 60 tokens here. Yeah, I think we'll stop now. And we don't have the Haywire Might, so I'm just going to play a Restless Cottage, and then we'll just ship it back, get to pick the cards to pick. So we definitely want to keep one Took, one Confectioner. Definitely want the Pylon. Definitely want the Ring and the Bowmasters. And what else have we got here? Take another Ring. Could take another Confectioner, but I think we'll just take a land as the final one, just so we have the 6th land going into next turn. So if they do have a sweeper, we can go Took, Confectioner again, you know, combo off again, but almost always going to be good enough to win these mid-range mirrors for sure. See what the opponent's got though. They could have the Ring, obviously, and we don't have an immediate answer to it, but even if they do, they're just delaying the inevitable. So if they do attack here, so we'll just block with the 1/1 token. See what else they got. Yeah, okay, opponent just scoops it up. So here again, very simple sideboarding, just bringing in the Terra Sunder for the tough cookie. And then just going to ship it back. You know, don't want to over sideboard. The deck is already pretty high synergy, and I feel like the main deck is also very good against these mid-range mirrors. You know, I've won the vast majority of my matches against both mono black and green black so far. Sultai can be a little bit more tricky because it's tough to know their deck configuration, particularly post sideboard. You know, some Sultai decks, if they're very counterspell heavy, you'll want to bring in duress against, but you might not see the counterspells game one, or they might board in more counterspell heavy. So, you know, this is the sort of deck that would really benefit from open deck lists, because against Sultai, you know, you have the tools to beat either version really, but it can be tough to know when to bring in discard spells depending on how much you see game one. But like I said, you know, mono black and Golgari has felt very good matchups to me. You just need to be very cautious with what you use your interaction on. You know, you really want to hold on to your Bowmasters to kill opposing Bowmasters. You really want to hold on to your Pylons to kill either Shieldeds or Bowmasters. Honestly, those are the only two creatures you really care about in the vast majority of situations. So as long as you play carefully with your removal, I found these mid-range matchups to be really good, which is sick because, you know, mono black and Golgari make up a very big portion of the metagame right now. So having a good matchup against the most popular decks is obviously a very good thing. So we're in the draw here, and I think we have to mulligan this. This we can keep though, and tough to know what to put back, because many partings is nice if we can find the 4th land. I think it's going to be Shieldred, honestly. You know, the opponent is likely to have a lot of interaction, particularly post sideboard against us, so just got to hope that we find a green land. If we can find a green land, well, then we can many partings, and then we have the 4th land for Beseech. We also have Bowmasters as enabler, and we have the 1 ring, so no land is a little bit sketchy. And I really don't want to force, you know, I really don't want to be forced to flash in this Bowmasters. So I think I kind of have to now. You know, we need a blocker in play for the Glisser, so I'm going to flash in the Bowmasters now just in case we miss a land. Okay, perfect. So we found the 3rd land, and it's a green one, so now we can guarantee the 4th land for the 1 ring. If I didn't have a second Bowmasters in hand, I'm not sure I would cast that first one out there, but we definitely need a chump blocker in play for Glisser. I really don't want the opponent getting free card advantage this early on. Now, we could have obviously waited a turn to flash it in, but I wanted to be mana efficient. You know, I knew I would be using Bowmasters to block at some point, so I thought I might as well do it that turn so that we had mana available this turn if we you know, had something else that we wanted to play. Okay, interesting. So I'm just going to jam the One Ring here. Very likely the opponent has a Bowmasters of their own from how they've played, because they didn't... yeah, okay. They preemptively fashioned the Bowmasters. I was going to set a stop during the opponent's upkeep, but now they fashioned the Bowmasters preemptively. I'm just going to do it now. And that's fine. Now we have double Bowmasters of our own, so we can just flash it in. But this is the sort of spot where it's important to highlight how important it is saving your own Bowmasters to kill the opponents, because if we didn't have a Bowmasters here, we'd be in real trouble. You know, this is the exact sort of spot where having your own Bowmasters, or, you know, holding on to it and playing a little bit more carefully with them is very important. So here, you know, I'm going to go for many partings first, just because, you know, I want to use the Bowmasters preemptively here and still hold open one for the opponent's turn. Maybe I'm supposed to wait until, you know, draw off the One Ring first in case we draw a 3-drop. But if I do draw a Peregrine Took or a... okay, we found a Haywire Mite. Perfect. Want to make sure we don't get messed up by the auto tapper though. But yeah, even if we had drawn a Peregrine Took or Confectioner off the One Ring, I don't think I would run it out anyway. I think I'd probably want to hold on to it so that when we draw off the One Ring again next turn, if we find the other combo piece, we can just play them both in the same turn. I think that's a lot safer, rather than potentially running it out into a removal spell, especially something like the End, you know. So I feel pretty good about this spot now. We have the One Ring in play. When the opponent doesn't, we have Bowmasters in play. Obviously, it's a little bit sketchy if the opponent has a Bowmaster of their own, but we still have ours. So yeah, opponent just keeps it up. So we got there, nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And I can't keep a no-lander, obviously. You're going to have to ship this one back. This one looks pretty good. I mean, well, we don't have that much stuff in the early game, but... And we are on the draw, which is a little bit sketchy, but, you know, as long as we can find the 4th land within the next few turns, we got Confectioner into the One Ring, which should be pretty decent. Really hoping that we draw another card we can play in the first few turns, though. Okay, we found the 4th land, so that means that we can guarantee play the Ring on curve, which is really nice. Even if the opponent has Dreams of Steel and Oil, we can potentially go Confectioner into Bargain Beseech to find another ring. So as long as we can find something else to play on turn 2, I'll be pretty happy with this hand. Okay, perfect. That's great. So now we can play Tough Cookie on turn 2, into Confectioner on 3, into Ring on 4, which is a pretty decent curve out. And then, you know, as long as we can find a Peregrine Took, we can potentially combo off, as long as the Tough Cookie survives, which is nice. Okay, Oracle of the Alpha, pretty happy to see that. Although, I don't know. Oracle of the Alpha is a card that I think is, you know, bad unless you build your deck around it in most scenarios, but is very tilting when the opponent happens to draw Time Walk or, you know, one of the other really good, like, Ancestral Recall early on. So opponent is in kind of a tough spot already where we could potentially have Peregrine Took in hand and be able to combo off. So I think opponent's quite incentivized to take out the Confectioner here, which does mean that we can probably resolve the One Ring here. I honestly, I can't even remember if Spell Pierce is legal in the format right now. Okay, they played another untapped land, but from my experience, not many of these Dimir decks are running 2-mana counter spells unless they're running the fairy, like the 1-mana fairy. Okay, they shielded the Tough Cookie as well, so now they're tapped out. We can just slam the Ring here, which is great, and then another Confectioner is also pretty nice. If we can find another Peregrine Took, we can potentially set up for, you know, the combo from an empty board on turn 6, which is pretty nice. So opponent attacks, we're obviously not going to take any damage, but that does give them a free scry off the top. See what else they've got here. Okay, another Crystal Grotto, that's fine. Oh wow, they did find the early Time Walk, so yeah, that's the kind of annoying thing about Oracle of the Alpha when they do find it early. Although having said that, I think it's probably, you know, pretty good for us that they didn't find it when they have an active One Ring. You know, I would kind of rather find it now when they're not that developed on the board than find it later in the game. But if they have a way to get it back from the graveyard, it's going to be kind of annoying. Okay, we did find the Peregrine Took, so that's pretty nice. So we could obviously run one of the two out now, but the only thing is if we don't play one of them out we're not being very mana efficient, which is not great when we have the One Ring and we're drawing so many cards each turn. But the only other option is Beseech, which I think is fine. I think I'm just going to go for the Beseech here and then, you know, go for Peregrine plus Confectioner next turn. And then got a lot of different options here. We could obviously go for Shieldred, which I think is probably the right line. You know, we could have obviously gone for Shieldred before we drew off the One Ring, but, you know, I wanted to see what I would draw first, if that makes sense. And if the opponent does have a piece of removal here, I think they're very incentivized to kill the Shieldred first, which is then obviously good when we have the combo in hand, right? The whole idea with this line is we want them to use their removal spell on the Shieldred so that we can then combo off, if possible. So I feel like if the opponent has a... Oh, wow, they just tap out for the Virtue. I mean, that's great. We can just combo off here then. And not only do we get to combo off, but we also get to draw... we also get to gain 2 life every loop that we do with the Peregrine Took as well. Now, against Dimir, I mean, again, I don't really think they have anything that's likely to be able to beat the combo. Like, unless they have a way to get infinite turns with, like, looping the Time Walk, then I'm not too worried. Even then, Shieldred is going to be, you know, dealing them 2 every time they do. And those sorts of decks haven't been around since rotation. I'm not even sure that they'd really be viable now, because I think cards like Shigeki rotated, so I'm not even sure there is an infinite turns Oracle deck in the format right now. Either way, I've not seen one at all so far, so I'm not really too concerned about it. And from their current board state, you know, they've only got 1 card in hand, so I think it'd be very difficult for them to set it up from this spot anyway, even if it was possible. So yeah, we're just going to keep going here. I mean, I do want to respect a sweeper, so I think I want to keep going until I can find either another Beseech or another Confectioner, unless they're in, like, the very bottom of the deck. So we've already got a Pylon, which is, you know, a good answer to anything they might draw. We've already got Peregrine Took. We've got Bowmasters as well, which is obviously pretty good. And then I don't really think they can get anything that great off the Virtue right now. So I feel like we should be good to win, right? I very much doubt they have something. If they do have a sweeper again, we can just keep going until we find Confectioner. At this point, though, I'm just going to ship it back. Even if they do use a sweeper here, then we still have... We can still combo off instant speed to try and find another Confectioner or Beseech to go off again the following turn. What can they get with Virtue? Okay, Tough Cookie is their best card, so... I mean, that does gain them a bit of life back, but... You know, it's not going to be enough when we have 27 tokens in play. We could even make some more at instant speed if we don't feel like it's enough. Okay, there is Rusco. I think... I mean, I don't think it really matters if we kill it now or wait for the midnight clock, but that can potentially gain them a little bit more life back, but... You know, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near good enough, right? We've got 27 1/1s in play, plus the Shieldred and the Confectioner and the Took as well, so... Yeah, okay, opponent just keeps it up. So, against Dimir, I mean, this does look like a build that could potentially be running more counter spells, but I don't want to over-sideboard until I see them, so I think I'm just going to sideboard like I normally do against the mid-range decks, just bringing the single Terrace Under over a Tough Cookie, and then if it does go to a game 3 and we do see a lot of counter spells, then we can definitely consider bringing some Duresses in as well, but... You know, from what I've seen so far, it does look like they're playing more of a mid-range shell, you know, interactive deck with Oracle, Rusco, probably the One Ring as well, so definitely want to keep the Haywire Mites in and the Terrace Under and stuff like that, but yeah, Dimir has also felt pretty good. The builds that I've struggled against the most are Sultai builds where I just don't know what their deck is like, if that makes sense. Because I've come across a few decks that are like mid-range game 1 and then board into a very heavy counterspell package, and if I don't preempt that and bring in Duress, then it can be quite tricky there. But for the most part, I've really felt like the matchup against other One Ring mid-range decks is just pretty good with this deck because we have the combo, and we also have, you know, because we can run Beseech, we're finding our rings much more consistently than the opponent. We obviously have the 4 main deck Haywire Mites as answers to the opponents as well, so... You know, I feel like this deck is very well positioned right now, while these One Ring mid-range decks are the most popular deck in the format. But yeah, it's hard to say really because you don't know exactly what build the opponent's on, particularly with the blue decks. Counterspells are obviously decent against us because all of our stuff is all, you know, quite expensive sorcery speed stuff for the most part. Although Bowmasters is also very good against counterspell decks, so this hand is missing green, but... We do obviously have Mirex, which can produce green for a single turn. And we've got the One Ring, so as long as we can keep drawing lands, we're good. Okay, we find a green source as well, which is great. Definitely not going to attack here. We don't want to give them an opportunity to use Bowmasters here. So it looks like the opponent's thinking about something here. Maybe Bowmasters, maybe removal on the Haywire Might potentially. Okay, there is Bowmasters, so very glad that I didn't attack here. And even though we have the One Ring and they do have Bowmasters, we have both Terra Sunder and Pylon that can answer it, so not a huge deal right now. Wow, opponent's missing land drops. That's obviously really good for us. And we find the Peregrine Took, so that's really good. We can run out the Took here, and then even if we have Confectioner, that only gives us 2 foods here, but you know, that's still a great find because we can potentially find many partings off the top, which then enables us to win next turn. Okay, opponent has cut down for it, which, you know, that is another weakness of the combo. Both pieces do die to cut down, but because we have Ring as our other backup plan, you know, it's very hard for the opponent to interact with us favorably, because even if the opponent does have a bunch of cut downs and the ends and stuff, that's really bad against the Ring. So, you know, it's really hard to stop both angles that this deck is attacking from. So we do give them a Bowmasters trigger here, but we have both Pylon and Terra Sunder that can deal with the Bowmasters next turn, so it's not really too much of a problem here. Okay, they do find their 4th land, but it's a tap land, so that's pretty huge. Okay, they just attack with the Oracle to get the Scry, which makes sense. So I think we're probably going to be using the Pylon here, I'd imagine, because it's just slightly cheaper than the Terra Sunder if we use the Haywire Might to convoke it. I mean, I kind of want to go for Confectioner first, because then we can fully utilize the convoke. Oh no, I should have played the Mirrex first, because if the opponent responds... okay, Trickery. So maybe that was greedy of me. Although having said that, I kind of prefer the opponent to use Trickery on the Confectioner than on the Pylon. So my logic there was I wanted to cast the Confectioner and then be able to pile on the Bowmasters by convoking 2 creatures. What I should have done is played the Mirrex first, because I forgot that Confectioner has an ETB trigger to create a food, and if the opponent killed the Confectioner in response to that, I don't have enough mana in play to convoke the Pylon, so I definitely should have played the Mirrex first if I was going to take that line. But thankfully we still have the Pylon available here. And I think, again, I'm going to go for the Confectioner line. It's definitely less risky this time because we can still Pylon even if the opponent does have an answer for the Confectioner. And I'm going to play the Confectioner first because, again, if they have a counterspell, I'd much rather them use it on the Confectioner than the Pylon here. Killing the Bowmasters unlocks the One Ring, which is pretty important. Okay, so the opponent has the end, which does mean that we can cleanly kill the Bowmasters, which is pretty big here. I think I'm happy to tap all of my lands, then just leave the Haywire Might back as a blocker at this point, because... Okay, we'll definitely take Beseech and we can bin a land here. But yeah, like, I want to keep Haywire Might as a blocker here, and I definitely want to draw before the end, because the end reshuffles our deck, so we want to get that Beseech off the top while it's still there. But yeah, we definitely want to keep Haywire Might as a blocker here, because if they... You know, if we had tapped it, we'd be taking 5 damage and then 2 off the One Ring, which would put us down to 4, which is kind of risky, whereas this way we can block with the Haywire Might and hopefully gain 3. Okay, they cut down the Haywire Might, but that's fine. The 3 life we gain basically just blanks the attack from this amass token, so... And we still have the food token here to gain life if we really need. We also have Beseech, so we could potentially sack the One Ring to Beseech and then, you know, Beseech to get another ring, which does give us protection, because Beseech does technically cast the card that you tutor. Okay, nice. So now I think I'm going to Beseech the ring and probably get another ring here, I think. You know, just do that line I mentioned there. Gets rid of the ring with the 3 counts on, so we're not taking a bunch of damage. Okay, they do stroke the Beseech, but I think that's fine because we have this food in play that we can sack to gain 3 life. And we also sack the ring as a cost, so we're not taking 3 damage every single turn anymore. And the opponent's now down to... Well, now they've got 2 cards in hand, but we've got a much fuller hand than them. Wow, they go for recall. I mean, we can punish that with Bowmasters here. That is a little risky, though, because now we don't have a way to gain food. But yeah, them having recall is kind of rough. I'm going to go face first, because if they have a removal spell for the Bowmasters... Oh, wow, they do. Okay. So that was kind of one of the best possibles for the opponent there. So this is kind of rough, because Now the opponent has a lot more resources. Although having said that, we still have multiple foods available off these many partings. But yeah, that was a very good sequence for the opponent there for sure. So now the attack, we're definitely going to block here. So we go down to 5. And we don't have anything that powerful going on. Oh wow, okay. Drew a Beseech, so now we do, which is obviously great. I mean, obviously if the opponent drew another counterspell, that's going to be a little bit rough, but we'll have to see if they got it. Even if they do, we still have food available, so we're not dead. Okay, so Beseech resolves, or they could still counter the One Ring here, I guess, but I think that's fine. And then I think we're kind of forced into playing the Mirex here, because if they have a Bowmasters of their own, we can just kill it with either Pylon or Terra Sunder. Okay, they don't have a Bowmasters, which is great. Now we can many partings to get land and food, which is obviously great when we're at 5, you know, gain us a little bit of life back. Going to play both many partings, and then we could obviously play the Haywire Might here, but I think it just makes more sense when we're at 5 to just pass and crack a food at the end of the opponent's turn. And then we still also... Oh, okay. Maybe I should have tapped slightly differently. I was going to say we still have Terra Sunder available if the opponent happens to draw a ring, but Mirex obviously only counts as a green source the turn it comes down, so I probably should have manually tapped. Although having said that, we did need to use both greens for the many partings, so maybe not. But it's like a really minor thing. I don't think that ends up mattering, really. But yeah, now with the ring in play, back up to 8, I think we should be good here, hopefully, unless we completely brick off the One Ring draws. Oh wow, we kind of did. So that's a little bit rough, but we still have Haywire Might, we still have the food tokens. So I'm going to run out the Haywire Might here for sure. At worst, we can use Haywire Might to exile our own ring if we're really worried about our life total, but hopefully it won't come to that. We still have the Restless Cottage that we can fire up as a blocker here. Although, I kind of want to kill this Oracle of the Alpha because it is dealing us quite a lot of damage in the air that we could prevent from, you know, future turns. And then I think I'm probably happy to block with the Haywire Might while we have Terra Sunder in hand. I don't want to use the Terra Sunder to kill the token. I'll keep a Tough Cookie on top just because that's, you know, gets a lot of potential blockers in play off the activated ability. But yeah, I definitely don't want to use Terra Sunder on the mass token here and then risk losing to Shieldred. So here we can use Mirex. We could have cracked the food, but with Tough Cookie on top, I kind of want to save that food as something that we can potentially animate with the Tough Cookie. Okay, we find another ring, so that's pretty good. So here, I definitely think I want to reset rings. You know, this is kind of a turning point in the game where if we don't, we go down to 5, and then we're kind of at risk here a little bit. Okay, opponent does have Disdainful Stroke, so that does kind of mess up that plan a little bit. We'll definitely attack with the 1/1 token here because it can't block. You might as well, you know, get him for a 3 point of damage here. And then, interesting spot. I think I'm going to go for another Haywire Might here just as another way to gain life. And then we can go for Tough Cookie here as well. And I believe I haven't played a land for turn yet, so I can also activate the Tough Cookie as a block, like to get a 4/4 blocker, which should hopefully stop them from attacking me unless they kill the Tough Cookie at end of turn here. So yeah, they can't really afford to attack with the 3/3 now because we can just animate a food. Okay, they do try and kill the Tough Cookie, so I think we're forced to animate a 4/4 here just to prevent them from attacking for the turn. You know, we could have obviously cracked a food in response instead, but this way is generally better because then we get to keep the food around. Okay, they just ship it back. And even though we're down to 5, I think we can afford to draw here because we have these food tokens in play to offset some of that. Okay, now we got Peregrine Took, which is nice. So now we can really start getting a lot of foods. Obviously, the opponent could have a removal spell in response, but, you know, we already have 2 foods in play, which gains us 6 life. So, yeah, they do have a go for the throat for the Peregrine, but I think that's fine. We also now have Bowmasters as well as, you know, a defensive option, which is pretty nice. So we could obviously go for Peregrine first again here, but I think just getting food tokens into play is really important here, just to ensure that I don't, you know, randomly lose, because we are going to be taking 4 during the upkeep to the 1 ring. So I think it is important to have access to a lot of life gain here. So we do have to discard a card to hand side. Just going to discard a Swamp, but yeah, I feel pretty good about this spot now. Even though the opponent did counter the 1 ring, you know, I still feel like we're not at risk to dying to the... Oh wow, they time twister. So we can go for Bowmasters in response here, which is obviously great. You know, if they don't have a removal spell for the Bowmasters, we get to deal a ton of damage off the the Time Twister. Really hope they don't have a Bowmasters of their own. If they do, we're in trouble. I guess we can use Terra Sunder on it though. So I think that would be fine. Looks like the opponent doesn't have one though. But this is kind of risky because now we don't have the stuff in hand that we did have. Okay, sweet. So now we have a pylon. I'm not too worried about this anymore. Opponent does get a fresh 7, but they've only got 4 mana here. And we're way further ahead on board now. I'm going to target the amass token 4 times here, just in case if they did draw a Bowmaster of their own, it's guaranteed to kill it. If they have 2 Bowmasters, then good beats, I guess, but I think it's worth wasting one of these Bowmasters triggers just to ensure that we take out the 3/3 here. Okay, it doesn't look like they did draw Bowmasters of their own, or maybe they don't want to cast it, but I feel pretty good about this spot now. I mean, we are obviously still concerned about our life total here, so I think I might use Pylon before they get the clock here. And I think I'm going to flash in the Bowmasters first because I do want to apply a lot of pressure now. But yeah, we definitely want to kill the Roscoe before it can deal us any damage while we're down to 5. This does mean that we can only crack 1 food token here. Oh well, 2 Pylons on top is great. But we can obviously also crack some food during our upkeep if we need to. And we've got another One Ring in hand to reset. Okay, they've got a Mock, so they do have access to 3 mana going into our turn here. So I don't know if it's safe to activate the ring here. Because if the opponent has a Bowmasters, we're in trouble. I guess we've got the Pylon though, so not too much of an issue. But I just want to start closing this game out now, I think. Opponent's definitely on the back foot. Right, we have lethal attacks in play. They could obviously have a removal spell for the 8/8. Okay, they do have a Bowmasters, so very glad that I didn't just activate the ring. Although, again, we could have used Pylon on it, so wouldn't have been a complete blowout, but... So they do stay alive for another turn, but we can just reset the ring. Now I feel like we can just activate the ring because we're going to be resetting it anyway. And we can also just use Beseech here. Now the opponent's essentially tapped out. You know, they only have red mana, so we could just go for Shielded and potentially not have to Legend Rule the ring here, which I think is probably a better line, right? I was concerned about my life total, so now we get to gain a bunch of life, not have to be worried about dying to the ring anymore. And now I'd be very shocked if the opponent managed to win here. We can just cast the Peregrine Took, and then next turn we can potentially Beseech for the other combo piece. Only casting the Took out here because I don't want to discard too much to hand size, but I think it's pretty close. Maybe I'm supposed to just hold open Pylon here. Okay, opponent goes for Sauron's Ransom. I'm going to set a stop during my upkeep just in case I need to crack food before the ring resolves for whatever reason. I think I'm going to... swap them like this, and then opponent does get a Bowmasters, but I think that's not going to be good enough here. Right, they go down to 4 off the Shield Red trigger. Don't need the upkeep stop anymore. And now we can just play a land, and then I think we're just going to fire up the creature lands here. Opponent will obviously be forced to use Bowmasters in response. Okay, yeah, sweet, we got that. Nice.